BC football recruiting needed some good news this weekend. They didn't really get the ones that they were expecting, but they did get a sliver of good hope. And when you're rooting for the Eagles, that's kind of all you can hope for at this point.
You are Locked On Boston College, your daily podcast on the Boston College Eagles, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, folks. This is Locked On Boston College. I'm your host, AJ Black. This episode is brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook, the official sportsbook of Locked On. Make every moment more. Visit FanDuel.com/LockedOn today to get started. All right, so this week, the end of June, let's say, has been kind of a tough month, and we're going to get into that. Couple weeks for BC recruiting, as the Eagles did not land a few of their bigger targets, and we'll get into what happened there and where does BC kind of pick up the pieces to go from there. But there was some good news, and hope reigns eternal. So I want to start with the positivity. I don't want to turn you off with negative stuff right off the bat. So on Friday, the Eagles landed their last commitment of the month of June, their 12th commitment in the month. And this was Cedric Lott, a 6'6" wide receiver out of Texas. Yeah, 6'6". Big time height. And on top of that, a basketball player who can jump. He doesn't have a ton of big offers because the big deal with Cedric Lott, this is his first year playing football. Like, this spring is the first year he's playing football. But Mike Roach of 247 was talking to him, and a few other guys, Gabe Brooks, who also does some scouting, says he had a monster camp, down some of the camps that he's had. And when he plays this fall, don't be surprised if he gets more attention. That's how good he is. So yeah, this is another kid that doesn't have an offer list that jumps out to you, but if you're into development, this kid has a lot of the raw potential that you're looking for. Like, I go back to thinking like 6'6". Who's some of the last guys BC has had that fit that size? I mean, CJ Lewis in the last couple years has been the biggest wide receiver, and he's 6'3". I think Taji Johnson's like 6'4", but he doesn't really play. I go back to Fayani Moma and Jonathan Coleman. Those, I think, are the two last guys. And Moma must have been like 10, 15 years ago. And he turned into a tight end in the NFL. So getting big size is something BC hasn't had. I don't think they've had it under Jeff Hafley yet. They have, all the guys that they have are like, Zay Flowers, 5'10", 5'9", 5'10", Jaden Williams, 5'9", 5'10", Dino Tomlin, I think, is just 6 feet tall. Joseph Griffin's probably the biggest guy that they have, and he's 6'3". But size is one thing, but the athleticism on top of that, I think, is what makes him intriguing, because you can get guys with size, but if they can't get separation and they can't get, if they can't get up and get a ball, it's very different than even a guy that's a couple inches shorter that can jump him, out jump him. So I like this. Is it a big, sexy pick? No, it's not a sexy pick at all, because this is a guy that doesn't have a ton of big offers. He's a guy that when you're looking at his sheet, you're going, oh, this is another typical Boston College commitment. This is a guy that, may not play at the Power 5 level if he didn't get a BC offer. But I do trust Daryl Wyatt. I think this is a guy, a coach that has a good eye for talent. He recruited Ryan O'Keefe to UCF. He's got a good history in the Texas area. And then the scouts on top of that, the national scouts that I've talked to that aren't BC related, they're telling me that it's a good thing too. So where does this leave BC at the wide receiver position? You have Josiah Martin, another Texas wide receiver who committed back earlier this month. He was the one that committed with Keondae Henry. He's a 6 foot, wide receiver. Good offer sheet. Obviously, he was, offered by like TCU and Alabama and things like that. He's good. And then there was a bunch of guys. I think it's interesting when you look at this wide receiver group. There's guys that either they kind of let go, and just because they offer a guy doesn't mean they're going to take him. So I'll give you a couple names. guys like Tamarcus Gray, Tristan Ward, Cam Montero. These are guys that they offered, but they didn't push for them. There was reasons they had guys higher on their board. So a guy like Tamarcus Gray, who was scheduled to have an official visit, they canceled that. And now he's at, I think, Tulsa, he's committed. So now what happens? I think BC still has a spot for one more wide receiver. I've talked to the staff. They were looking at potentially getting 3 wide receivers. The feeling I get when I talk to BC is that when it's a talent that they really want, they're not going to turn it away. So maybe they go for another running back or they go back for a 3rd wide receiver, but I think they're going to go back and try to get another wide receiver. Now, the feeling is they're going to probably shuffle up their board again. That this means we're going into another evaluation period for the staff where they're going to watch film. They're going to have guys on campus. So you're going to see new names, and it's going to be at other positions too, where BC, and we'll talk about that in just a moment. But I think you'll see some more at the wide receiver position as well. So my expectation, I think you're going to have 3 wide receivers. And I like this. I like this commitment for Boston College. I talked to Lott a little bit. He was a surprise. Once they lost Keondae Henry, they brought in 2 guys that last weekend of June for surprise official visits. These are guys I didn't know about. Sometimes the staff, they're busy. Sometimes they tell me about things. Sometimes I have to figure it out. I heard about the other guy, Elijah Basea, who, if you're looking for a higher end guy to go behind, to replace Keondae Henry, that's your guy right there. And I'm not sure where that's at right now. I'll tell you that right now. But I know he came. These guys are teammates, Lott and Basea. So we'll have to wait and see what happens with that. See if they're going to be able to, bring in Basea, because he would be I don't know. To me, he strikes me as the kind of guy that would be the perfect fit for that number 3 wide receiver spot. But that's it. So we end the month of June with 13 commitments, 12 in the month. BC's now 61st in the country, not where you want to be. In a moment, I'm going to talk about where this class is at. We're going to look at some of the other news, because this was the good news, but there was some really worrisome news. And we'll talk about where things are currently at for recruiting, some of the concerning things that happened, why I think it happened, and what BC has to do to kind of finish off and kind of pick themselves back up. We'll get into all of that in just a moment. But before I do that, I want to tell you about our good old friends at FanDuel. I want you to take your first swing at betting MLB on FanDuel and get 10 times your first bet amount in bonus bets up to $200. That's right. Just bet $20 and you'll land $200 in bonus bets, win or lose. Thinking about the Red Sox, you liking how Justin Turner's playing? You can make a prop bet on him hitting a home run in a game. You can make bets on how many strikeouts Ohtani's going to get, and then bet on how many home runs he's going to hit. And and then maybe you do a parlay and then add that the Angels are going to lose that game. Because it seems like he hits a home run, he strikes out like 13 people, and then they still lose. But there's no better place to bet on Major League Baseball than FanDuel, America's #1 sports book. It's all in an app that's safe, secure, and super easy to use. Plus, when you win, you get paid instantly. So sign up today and visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to get up to $200 in bonus bets. That's FanDuel.com/lockedon. FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of Major League Baseball. This is Locked On BC, AJ Black. Happy July, everyone. We are now a month away from Boston College football opening up their summer camp. And I know folks are apprehensive. I think that's the feeling right now. It's not excitement this year. It's folks going, okay, this is going to be a critical year. I'm a little worried. I saw what happened last year. I saw it happen the year before. Will this be the year that Jeff Hafley gets it going, gets this program going in the right direction? And the apprehension has kind of, trickled, rightfully so, into the recruiting class, because we went into June hoping that, that they would take significant steps forward with this class. I had made 3 predictions, and I'll say I got like 1.5 of it right. And you guys could tell me I got 1 of it right. That's fine. I said that they would land over 10 recruits. They did that easily. I said they'd land a 4-star. They did with Keondae Henry and then lost him because they pulled his offer. So that's my half. I think I kind of got that. And you know what? The third one, I'm kind of half right too. I said they would get 2 running backs and 2 wide receivers. They got 2 wide receivers and 1 running back. So kind of close. But the bigger piece of this, the bigger piece I feel is that the end of the month, it just felt like all the excitement that started in that middle when Henry committed, and you had guys like Turbo Richard and Josiah Martin and Benjamin Blackburn, all these guys committing. The end of the month, it felt like the rug was pulled from under you, because it just felt like a lot of misses. It felt like a lot of guys that we knew were high on their draft board did not end up at Boston College. And I'll go over some of them, right? So you saw DeJuan Williams. This was a 4-star running back. I know a lot of folks were hoping that there would be another 4-star, right? It was down to BC and Maryland. St. Francis Academy, Abdul Rahim's, that's his bread and butter. He ended up picking Maryland. So you didn't get that guy. You missed on a bunch of offensive line, commitments, right? You left with 1. That didn't feel good, right? On top of that, the big news from this weekend, I think what a lot of folks are talking, and Lloyd Irvin, another cornerback I know the staff was really high on, didn't even put BC in his final 3. He took an official visit and then just cut BC out of his. He took 4 official visits, named a top 3, and then just cut BC. That one didn't feel good, right? So you go into this weekend, and then the bigger news, the news I think that folks are really having a hard time processing, and I totally get it, is Henry Hasselbeck. We talked about this a couple of weeks ago in my episode. I think the title was Henry Hasselbeck. It's Henry Hasselbeck or bust. Well, it's bust, folks, because Boston College is not going to take a quarterback in the class of 24. And you can look back at this month and you look at all the guys that they had. They had, was it 3 or 4 guys that they were really 3. I think they had 3 guys on campus. That they are hoping to get on campus, that they were really pushing for. You had Aiden Glover from Collierville, Tennessee, who they were high on. He ended up at Mizzou. You had Miles O'Neill, who was scheduled to come on campus. He never did, and ended up at Texas A&M. You're not going to win that battle. And then Hasselbeck, who announced on Friday that he's committing to Michigan State. There's no easy way to rationalize this, right? I would just say, if his name was not Hasselbeck, I think this would be a different story. I think folks are really stuck, and I get it, that it's a Hasselbeck. It's a legacy. The sisters play there, his dad, his uncle, his mom, his own, everyone that's a Hasselbeck played there. And on top of that, Matt, his dad, was a big, person in charge, like pushing to get Jeff Hafley here. And now his kid's going elsewhere. I don't have any way to put a shine on any of this, because there's no way. Like, if you wanted Henry Hasselbeck here, this is not an easy pill to swallow. I would say this. I think from what I've seen that the class of 24 quarterbacks weren't all that great. Hasselbeck, from everything I've heard, and is a project, and BC's a project school. They're a developmental school, so there's nothing to knock on the kid. I'm just saying he's not you're not missing out on the next coming of Deshaun Watson or something like that, right? Or Doug Flutie. This kid, he's going to take some time to develop. From what I've heard, he may not ever develop into an NCAA quarterback, and that's okay. What I think we need to do, what the piece that where I'm at when I envision this is, they did strike out. They struck out on quarterbacks. There's no other way to say that, right? They struck out on that. The staff, when I talk to them, are considering Tommy Castellanos as their 24 quarterback. And when I say that to folks, they're like, well, AJ, you're supposed to get a quarterback each class, and it screws up all your development levels and all that stuff. That's great, but that's not how college quarterbacking is right now. And it stinks that you didn't get a quarterback, but the transfer portal is right now, it does a number on every program's quarterbacks. Look at any quarterback. No school has just kept all 5 of their 6 of their quarterbacks every single year. They're constantly transferring out. They're constantly getting guys back in. I think it's what BC just did with Castellanos, right? So the fact that you didn't get a guy this year, maybe then next year you're looking in the portal and you see another guy that you can fill in for depth that maybe will be that developmental guy. Maybe Hasselbeck in a year decides he's not going to fit at Michigan State, or Miles O'Neill at Texas A&M is never going to see the field because it's Texas A&M. You'll figure that stuff out. That's the piece I think about. That being said, at the end of the day, with all of this, when you're looking at everything that's going on with recruiting, there's no way to spin it that the end of the month did not end the way that you would expect it to, or you'd hope for it to end if you were a coach. You did not land the guys that you're hoping to land, whether it's the quarterback position, it's Lloyd Irvin, it's the offensive lineman. It's after a 3-9 season, it's tough. And so then it asks the question, is this like class be a disaster? I don't think so, because I think what we're all getting stuck on right now, there's still 6 months of recruitment times that's going on. And if you listen to the 247 national guys, the guys that cover recruiting, like Steve Wiltfong and some of these other guys, they talk about that this fall is going to be a huge flip season, like flipping. Like, so guys are going to be like committed to another school and they're going to flip to another school. That tells me one thing, right? That there's two things that are going to happen to BC and that could change the outlook of this class, right? First of all, they're going to start evaluating again. You're going to see positions that are not filled the way that they want to, with guys that are, that they hadn't developed or looked at before. And you can call those plan B guys if you want, that's fine. But they're going to look at those guys. I mentioned there is a 6'7" offensive tackle from London who is originally from Nigeria. He plays at the NFL Academy out there. And his name is Daniel Akinamini, I think his name is. Talk to him on our site. He could be a guy that they bring in for an official visit. He's got offers from Baylor and, a ton of big schools, but he's interested in Boston College. And so you're going to find other guys. And then the other piece, and we've already seen it happen twice, that BC could start flipping guys. And right now, the guys that you've already offered, there's probably not a chance that you're going to flip them yet, because when you're looking at them, right, like they chose against BC because they know, they're like, okay, this is a program that's 3-9 and I want to go to a school, this. But if BC can somehow, and I know some folks are very again, like nervous this won't happen, but if say BC turns around this season and plays well, those recruits and other recruits are going to notice that. So that's why this season is so important, because maybe BC will lose a guy or two. It's going to happen. It's the way recruiting works, right? But if they play well, they can also flip guys as well. So that's where I think things are going to happen. You're going to start they're going to go through another evaluation period. They're going to start seeing guys come, you'll start to see more official visits probably in September of kids that you want, maybe are starting to look at. Then you will try to do some flips too. So we'll have to wait and see what happens there. But at the end of the day, as I said, it was a tough end of June, and I was hoping for more. It didn't happen, but we'll have to wait and see. All right. In our final segment, a little bit more positive news, as the Boston College, announces their Hall of Fame class for the class of 23. And there's some big names I think a lot of Boston College basketball, football, and hockey fans are going to want to know more about. We'll get into that in just a moment. This is Locked On Boston College. I am your host, AJ Black, and we're talking about the Hall of Fame. So the Hall of Fame, BC Hall of Fame, if you ever been into Conti Forum, you see the plaques. It's a cool little thing, and it's a great recognition for players that have busted their butt to make at a school like Boston College to get recognized. And you see a lot of big names, obviously there's Flutie and Ryan and, Junta and Bill Curley and, even some of like Carolyn Swartz of the women's basketball team. You get all these different players from all different sports that get into there, even some of the non revenue sports that maybe you don't even know about. But over this, what was it, on Friday, they announced 11 new honorees, and some of the names I think you're going to notice and remember. And I remember them because they were there when I was there, which is, first of all, at football, Gosder Cherilus. one of the best offensive linemen I've ever seen at BC. He started all 13 games at right tackle in 2005, and in 2006. 2007, he moved to left tackle, and he got all ACC. And he was a first-round draft pick and had a long NFL career. So he was a big one I saw. And I saw some Chris Snee, who's now an offensive analyst, I think, for the offensive line, shouting him out on Twitter. So he was one that I noticed. Another one, Charlie Davies. I remember Charlie Davies more from the unfortunate accident that he had. He had a wicked bad car accident. But, he played men's soccer. He was Big East Rookie of the Year, all Big East first team, and then played for the U.S. men's senior national team for 2008 Beijing Olympics. So he's another one that made it. And one of my, and I'm going to kind of just end it with this one. One of my favorite players I've ever seen in any sport at BC, and that's Jared Dudley. Now, I was there the years that BC basketball was awesome. The last year in the Big East, and then the first year in the ACC. And Dudley was one of the most charismatic, clutch players I've ever seen. And to me, like every time, since he's left, there's been 3 coaching searches. And his name comes up every single time because he embodies Boston College. When you think of BC basketball, older folks might think of Bill Curley, and I get that. But to me, Jared Dudley is the embodiment of BC basketball. Now, he is with the Spurs. He's won an NBA championship. I saw LeBron James shouting him out on Twitter for getting in. It was a cool moment. So he was the last one. And now, obviously, really quickly, I saw, what was his name? It's not on here. Chris Kalanis, who scored that game-winning goal to win. And I think it was the one that went. Yeah, he hit the game-winning goal in the overtime to win the national championship against North Dakota. He scored 82 points in 83 games. So again, really cool. They'll probably announce all these guys at a football game and honor them. I think, do they have the date yet? Yeah, October 27th. They're gonna have a banquet. So really cool. This is AJ Black. We'll be back again on Wednesday. Hope you all have a great 4th of July. If there's any news, make sure to follow me on Twitter at AJBlack247 as long as your rate has not been exceeded yet. I'm also on Instagram and Facebook. If you're done with Twitter, I totally get it. It's been kind of a pain, and I can't even use it right now. But follow me there. Follow me on us on YouTube. And for all you everydayers who have listened to us every day, thank you all so much. We'll be back again on Wednesday. And sorry for the folks that are in the comment section. If you were asking me questions, I didn't get a chance to answer them. I'll try to answer them in just a moment. Thank you all. Take care.